Hi.
Fritz, hello.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's
Well,
been a
this really
very,
works. I never did that before.
that's what everybody is telling me. We're breaking new ground, so I think it's
Yeah.
exciting because I have to say that the new generation of wine lovers are all on Instagram, and
Yeah.
I've been on a mission to try to get more wineries to engage because I think it's exciting, and I'm hoping to help more, and especially small wineries don't have a marketing budget, so it's a nice way to interact. Anyways, wow, look at the view, man.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
oh gosh, okay.
Danube. The Danube
The Danube and the city.
and
That's
the city.
oh, hi, Sophie. Um, so let's just start. I want to see that view more, but I want to hear about who you are. Some people might not know you, so will you please
Okay.
introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Fritz Wieninger. I'm the winemaker and owner of the Wieninger estate in Vienna. All my vineyards are within the city limits of Vienna, which is maybe not one of the biggest wine regions, but a very beautiful wine region that has something very special that it is inside the city limit of a 2 million city.
It's
That's
incredible.
it.
What's the actual appellation called? Is it Vienna Hills?
No, it's just Vienna. Just Vienna.
Vienna. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is. Are you? How long has your family been had the winery?
Well, for a long time on my mother's side, for about 120 years. For my father's side, even longer than that. But my father is not from Vienna. He's from outside of Vienna, Weinviertel,
Okay.
the Czech border, actually. Over many generations, they always had been in the wine business or restaurant business and butcheries and things like that.
Okay.
Everything you can eat or drink.
Um, and if I remember correctly, because you're in the hills, you all have pretty deep cellars. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. It's a cellar in Germany is always something underground. We never used warehouses or something because in the winter it's here pretty cold. We have a continental climate. We can get down to minus 20 Celsius. And in the summer, nowadays, with the climate change, we can get up to even 40 degrees Celsius, which is extremely hot. So a cellar underneath soil covered with like 2 meters, 2 meters 50 of soil on top of it keeps the temperature all over the year. And that's knew already my forefathers in the Middle Ages. And still today, with energy pricings of today, it's good to have cellars. You don't have to heat in the winter and you don't have to cool down in the summertime.
Yeah, I remember them being so beautiful, and I think it would be fun to see a video. So I'm going to ask Sophie to take you down and do a video and post maybe on IGTV because people
Okay.
don't get to see them and there's no reception for this kind of a chat. So can you tell us what we're looking at?
Well, we are in, I thought I come to that vineyard on the Nussberg side that really is my first or was my first. In 99, I took over this vineyard. It's the Ried the Gemischter Satz vineyard that also second opened my eyes to the issue of Gemischter Satz. Before, I was not so convinced about Gemischter Satz. And with this vineyard, and especially with the wine of the first vintage I made out of it, I started to really get crazy about this kind of old-fashioned, historic thing, Gemischter Satz, where different grape varieties are planted together. I cannot tell you now what these wines are.
Thanks,
Like
Jody.
here, it looks like a Grüner Veltliner, and the next one looks now very similar, but during the harvest it's easy to detect because during the harvest you see the grapes and the leaves and all the signs that are specific for the different varieties. Actually also not so important because we harvest always everything together, which is the important thing with the Gemischter Satz, a field brand wine.
So if I understand it correctly, Gemischter Satz means mixed set. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like a mixed planting. Satz, we in German, we have two words for planting something. We plant vegetables, but we do not plant vines. We have a different word for that. In Germany, it's called setzen, because it's like a wooden stick. you put into
Oh,
the
nice.
earth, and it would stand on its own because it's already hard. And plants like this we do not plant. We use the term setzen, and that's
I like that.
the source where this name Gemischter Satz comes from. Gemischt means mixed, and Satz means the planting.
So can you explain the history of the field blend? As I understand it, it's kind of insurance because something's always going to be ripe and something's always going to be green, but you're always going to have a good crop. Can you explain a little more the history of a Gemischter Satz?
Yeah, sure,
Or field blend?
absolutely. Well, Gemischter Satz, the history is extremely long because before the middle of the 19th century, there was nothing else than Gemischter Satz. And it was not just in Vienna, it was all over Europe because it was not used to have one variety in the vineyard. It was not used to have nurseries that produce new vines. The farmers did that on their own. And they used it as a kind of insurance, as you say, because different grape varieties in one vineyard do not flower at the same day or the same time. The period of flowering is like a week up to 2 weeks long, according to the weather conditions. If you have very bad weather for one night and that hits the flowering, in the middle of the flowering, you do not harvest anything. But in a Gemischter Satz, if you have one bad night, you cannot destroy everything. You destroy maybe one variety, but the other 10 survive, and you always harvest something. Also,
And
if you have winter frost, for example, often on the bottom of the vineyards, they planted different varieties compared to the hillsides or the top of the hills, just to protect their vineyards against frost as well.
So I think you touched on this, but then do you harvest everything together and then ferment and everything together, or?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the miracle of the Gemischter Satz, that you should not and cannot harvest each of the varieties at its so-called perfect point of picking. I think it's important to harvest everything together. You get not only the different aromas of the different varieties, you also get the different stages of maturity. You have some underripeness that brings you freshness and acidity. You have some overripeness that gives you notes of dried fruit, exotic fruit, and so on. And I think this is the important thing with Gemischter Satz, to have a symbiosis of all of it, and not one particular variety jumping out of the glass.
So then what's added, what extra happens in Nussberg when the vines are old?
It's what happens everywhere. The roots get extremely big and deep and get to source nutrients and minerals from areas where young vines never can get something. They also can, which is today extremely important. I mean, not today, but these days with the climate change, because the summers get hotter and drier. The deeper the roots go down, the safer they can go through a drought, a dry period. And when the vines are not stressed, then they give the best quality. Stress is always bad. Like with meat, fruit is the same. Vines are also alive. They just cannot talk, but they are also alive, and they also feel stress. You can see vineyards when they are really dry, that they are not happy. They are kind of moving to somehow together, and it's clear that the quality of the fruit cannot be the same.
Yeah. And then how does the old vine manifest itself in the glass? How does it taste differently than Nussberg?
Yeah, it's usually more multi-layered flavors, more character, more deepness in the fruit. It's not more alcohol, or it's not, I don't know, not more sugar. It's the same sugar. Usually a young vineyard even produces more sugar, but less ingredients. And the old vineyard is more balanced and produces many more ingredients that give many more layers in the taste, and also in the smell.
Thank you.
So I love old wines.
So I love that, especially your Nussberg. You know, it's one of my favorites. So can you take a moment and show us what we're looking at in the background, your vineyard, and then the river and the city?
Yeah, here's the Danube River. In the back, these skyscrapers, that's the UN center, and the buildings around it.
Okay.
And if we turn a little bit over here, well, it's too small to see.
Wow.
But you could see St. Stephen's, the downtown center of Vienna, which is maybe 5 kilometers away from here. It's not really far. And if we turn further to the west, you can see also the first mountains. We are here in Vienna, located on the very last rolling hills of the Alps. And down on the where the city is, actually the Alps are over. So this is a very strong spot, also from the esoteric point of view. This is a very strong spot. It's not just good terroir.
Yeah, really.
The soil actually is more. I don't know if you can see that.
But you can turn the camera around if you want. There's 2 little arrow buttons, and it will flip the camera, so you can direct it easier.
I got it. Here, yeah, I think you can.
Oh, wow.
Now, here is a piece. This is like a piece of a coral reef.
Oh, wow.
This is pure chalk, and there's a lot of these stones. Also, the color of this soil goes in this direction. It's yellowish, very light yellow, brownish yellow, that indicates a very high content of chalk. And in fact, the Nussberg, especially on this side or on this end, it's one of the richest, well, talking about chalk content, one of the highest percentages in whole Austria.
Wow.
You see the greening, it's we didn't mow anything so far. We want to attract insects, not just bees. The bees are not so important for us, but all kinds of others that should move around here. Mm-hmm. In the back, you might see hailnet. These black things are hailnets. A part of this vineyard I protect with these hailnets. Because occasionally we have hail here, and I lost a few years lots of the grapes. Mm-hmm. Since I made this hail nets, we never had hail again. So maybe it's a good sign.
Yeah. You never happened since you put it up. So, that's great.
Now I see better. Also, what you maybe also saw before in the back, these hills is. Left of the hills is already Gumpoldskirchen, for example, south of Vienna. And these 2 towers is the biggest hospital in Central Europe, which is in Vienna. Yeah, this is my hometown.
It's unbelievable.
Vienna, and the beautiful Danube.
It's one of the prettiest cities I've ever been to, but you can take a taxi from your hotel to the vineyards, and it's just the best wine trip you could ever take.
Actually, you can take a streetcar to the vineyards, and
that's awesome.
By public transport, that's also possible.
So, Jay Brent Becker said you make Austria's best Pinot Noir. Can you talk to me about that?
Of course. Well, Pinot, actually, I thought also to go to that vineyard. One of my newer Pinot Noir vineyards is not far away from here. I recrafted a French Pinot Noir clone. I was really getting from France to Austria on an old vineyard of Blau Fränkisch. I did not plant that. I don't know what makes somebody to plant Blau Fränkisch on the Nussberg, because it's such a pure white wine hill. But if not white wine, then it must be Pinot Noir, of course, because this is like a white wine, just with red color.
I see.
Well, Pinot Noir for me is something I like very much. Most of the Pinot Noir is actually grown on the other side of the Danube.
Oh,
which you see here. Well, we cannot see very good to that because it's behind the hillside.
okay.
But we have to cross the Danube, and on the other
Mhm.
side of the Danube is actually my winery, and behind the winery is a lot of vineyards and Pinot Noir,
I see.
Pinot Blanc, and the Burgundy varieties, what we call them, are mainly on that side.
I see. But I've meant to ask you before, what are the grapes in Gemischter Satz?
Well, there is no rule. The only rule that really exists is that you have to have a maximum of 15%, 50% of the number one variety, and a minimum of 3 different grape varieties. Everything
Okay.
else and what varieties you use is completely up to the wine producer.
I see.
I like it
Go ahead.
when there is Pinot Blanc on the Nussberg side, a majority, Grüner Veltliner a little less, maybe on this side always Traminer on both sides. Neuburger is something that is in particular in this vineyard here, very, very important. It's the number 2 variety in this vineyard here, the Ried Ulm. You need some varieties with acidity, like Welsh Riesling or Zierpfandler, and you need some varieties that give you this overripeness, this dried fruit aromas, like Pinot Blanc or Neuburger. Gives or a Traminer, that is always very important. Traminer is for me like, I always compare it with some pepper on a green leaf salad.
Oh yeah.
You can have these green leaves, and without pepper, it tastes not very spicy, tastes like nothing. You give too much pepper, it's too hot. You find the perfect portion, just a little bit of pepper, and the salad is great. That's the same with Traminer in a Gemischter Satz. You find a little bit and spice it up. That's wonderful. But you have to do that, of course, by planting it.
Sure.
So you have to know the percentage way before you harvest the first grapes.
I see. Do I remember correctly that you use, not necessarily you, but in Austria, you use acacia barrels?
Well, sometimes in the old times a lot, because acacia is very common here, much more common than oak. And is similar from the density like oak, so the breathing is also not very intense, like with oak. The only big difference is acacia is in the use, it's very sweet, it's like American oak, or a little bit like American oak. It's sweet, and it tastes a little bit like a parfum, like aromatized. So when it's very young. I had once a new barrique size acacia barrel for Riesling. The wine was great, but when it was the first fill, then that was a little too intense.
Okay. There's something that I always confuse is the word for wine, the word for vine, the word for Vienna, your spelling of your last name.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
Yes. Well,
and it's down below too.
Wein is wine, and Wien is Vienna. So you just how do you say,
Swap
mix
the E and the I.
swap the E and the I, and you get the other word. So that shows how intense Vienna is connected to wine.
Really?
And I think that's definitely historic. The Roman name for Vienna was Vindobona. So if you translate that a little the easy way, it's vin is wine, bona is good, so a place of good wine. That's what the Romans called Vienna, and I'm sure they had already wine here because we have evidence that there was wine already before. Not the Romans brought the wine, they brought maybe new varieties,
Okay.
but wine was already here and was cultivated by the Illyrics and the Celts, so the people that lived here hundreds of years before already.
So since we're on history, can you tell the story of I think it's the emperor's son and the Heuriger, and that's a
Yeah.
very unique thing too.
Well, it's a son of, it was the Emperor Joseph II, son of Maria Theresia, this famous empress. And he wanted to give more rights to the people, the poor people, to the working class people. He was actually like a socialist in just 250 years ago, because it was not allowed for a farmer to sell his products directly to consumers. It had to be sold by traders, by wholesalers. They picked the stuff up and brought it to the communities, to the cities, and then they sold. The farmers only were there to produce from a piece of soil, produce vegetables, fruits, or wine. And Joseph II gave the right to the people, to the farmers, to sell their own products themselves. So they were allowed from that time on to sell whatever they produced directly to the consumer. And in Vienna, it was the birth time of the Heuriger, because lots of producers, wine producers, opened small taverns, wine bars or bistros. They did not sell any food. The food had to somebody
okay.
wanted to call me. The guests had to bring the food, and they only were able to buy the wine. That was the early stages of the Heuriger. Today it's different. You get a wide range of different also meals and food, but one thing is still the same. You never get beer at the Heuriger, at the real Heuriger, and you never get wine that is not from their own house. So there's no bought grapes, no bought wine. This is still today the rule.
Did it start out with like just the young wine in the fall, and that's now all year round, or am I making that up?
No, I don't think so.
I'm thinking
it was the young wine is called Heuriger, and this is also how these wine bars are called. Heuriger is just a general phrase for something new. You can say Heuriger to wine, you can say Heuriger to potatoes. For example, when we have asparagus season, we are crazy for the new potatoes because they are fresher, lighter, and have a more fine taste compared to the potatoes you have left over from last year. Right. Even herring is called Heuriger in Vienna, if we get some. But herring is not very popular here. We don't have that option.
You're making me hungry talking about this, but I do want to ask, when I visited, you took me and Steve Kelly to this little tavern, I think in the old part of Vienna. What was the name of the restaurant? And then we ate something with like pasta and cabbage and I think bacon. That's
Schinkenfleckerl, probably. That must have been Schinkenfleckerl. A pasta dish, which is very typical here. We call it Auflauf. You put it in the oven and put some cream to it and some cabbage or onions and small cut ham or speck, and crust it with cheese on top. And then you with a knife you cut squares out of that. You can eat salads. Cucumber salad fits very well, or green leaf salad fits very well. And my mom, when I was a young boy, and I was helping her at the Heuriger in the buffet, sometimes, not like today, really very seldom somebody asked, well, I'm vegetarian, do you have something without meat? My mom said, yeah, Schinkenfleckerl, and Schinken is ham, so Schinkenfleckerl, because there's only a little bit of meat. Yeah.
So then that is the kind of food you're going to have with your wine, right?
Absolutely. Grüner Veltliner or Gemischter Satz with that kind of food, that matches wonderful. Or white wine that is not too heavy, with a good portion of acidity also fits wonderful to pork, for example.
Sure.
The fat of the pork and the acidity of the wine that melts together, and the pork is not fat anymore, and the wine is not acidic anymore. This is something very, very traditional here. We love that in Vienna.
Amazing, amazing. Can you just very generally speak about why Gruner and Austria are together? You don't really see so much Gruner outside of Austria. What's the history, condition, terroir?
Gruner is a very specific variety. What is in terms of the needs, climatic and also from the soil. Climatic, I mean, it doesn't like it too cold because then it's really green and not very nice to drink. If it's too hot, hotter climate, then it gets boring because it loses acidity very quick. So Grüner Veltliner, even in the south of Austria, in the south of Austria, it's not so common because it's too warm already.
I see.
It needs a very distinct microclimate to give a nice wine. More a cooler, but not too cold.
Somebody asked, are the hills very steep there? Do you need special equipment to?
Yes,
it is.
So here, this is, I don't know if I could show. We can go a little further down if you like. I'm not sure if you will see that, how steep it is, but we can go, the machines for here only do it with 4-wheel drive. And also you have to connect the 2 wheels on the left and right side, Differentialsperre we call that. I don't know the English word for that. Otherwise, you cannot make it up the hill. It's too steep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And down, actually, on the footsteps here, it's a very, noble living area starting. This is the 19th district, a lot of old money, and the land is extremely expensive. The vineyard zone or vineyard land is not so expensive because it's strictly protected by the government and nobody is allowed to build anything here. Even, I think you should not even think about it. You get a fine immediately.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see that. I turn the camera around.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This is the view down. And I don't know. Can you see how steep it? No, it's.
Yeah. No, we get an idea. You can see.
In reality, it's really steep. It's much steeper than it looks like here.
Wow. And everything's spread out there. Are there Premier Cru or the equivalent of Premier Cru vineyards in Vienna?
Well, we are in one of them. We started in 2017 to certify. Well, we certified already before, but we started in 2017 with showing the first certified Premier Cru vineyards. I'm the president of that group, Traditionsweingüter Vienna, as a daughter or brother of the Traditionsweingüter Austria. And our goal is definitely to certify the best vineyard land and put it up to a status of Premier Cru, and later on even give it the status, some of them giving a status of a Grand Cru. We call it not Premier Cru, we call it Erste Lage, the German expression of that, but it means the same. It means the same. And this Gemischter Satz, Ried Ulm, is since 2017 definitely rated as a Erste Lage wine.
That's awesome. And I want to just remind everybody that hasn't seen that Jody Stern has been writing down the terms that might be interesting to people to see, because I'm very visual to see the words. My friend Becky Sue Epstein, who's a journalist, asked about the history of the wine spritzer in Vienna.
That's a good question. Yeah, well, the history of the spritzer, I don't know how old it is, but it always was used to mix water with wine. Water on its own, people didn't drink in the past because it mainly was polluted. Okay. Water was to wash your hands, but not to drink. Maybe to dilute the wine because the wine was clean and healthy, and did disinfect the water.
I like that.
I think this started later when the hype of the soda started, where the people liked to freshen up their wine and make it a little bit lighter, especially for the summertime, because you can drink much more. Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing is so great against your thirst in the summer heat than a spritzer. And the hotter it gets, the more soda you take.
Yeah.
And just soda is like water. It doesn't taste as well as a dash of wine in it. You can drink all day, and you can drink so much water with your little bit of wine that you have enough water inside to sweat, but you never get drunk with that.
And I think Gruner makes the best spritz too, just because it has enough flavor and enough oomph that it stands up in there. I don't water your wine down, but I use a Gruner in a spritz. It's a good call.
I think so too. The spiciness of the Grüner and the acidity, that is fantastic flavors, giving fantastic flavors for a spritzer.
So most of the, I'll let you go in a few minutes because I don't want to go too much over a half an hour. But most of the vineyards that I've visited like this have been out in the country, and the quarantine has not affected them so much. How is everything different in the city as a winery?
In terms of what?
Getting to work, your workers are still spread out in the vines, but do they come to work on a bus or a tram, or do they carpool?
Most of my people come with the tram or public transportation. Sometimes they sit in the car for 10 minutes because they cannot get out of the winery because of heavy traffic in the morning. All the wild mothers with their kids bringing them to school until they really can go on the road. Sometimes it needs them some time. Well, it's traffic. It's a lot of people here, but whatever is bad is also good.
Yeah.
And when we open the door of the Buschenschank, already people are waiting there. They are sitting there already waiting that we are opening. Because we are not in the countryside, because there's 2 million people here. Everybody is thirsty. People here love wine and love this protected vineyard zone. That's actually also an important reason. If we would sell what we own on land up here for the price of these residential areas down the hill, I would be a multimillionaire, but I tell you, I don't want it, because I don't want to be the generation after, I don't know how many hundreds probably, that ends or stops with vineyards in Vienna. I want to be the opposite. I want to be the generation that makes steps to save the vineyards of Vienna for the future. And this is what I'm doing. And this is what is happening. Viennese people 20, 30 years ago were not so proud about Viennese wine. They went to the Heuriger to have a Spritzer, maybe a Schweinsbraten, but the wine was not so important. Now, today, 2020, they are super extremely proud of what is done here, what is grown here, and I'm very happy that it's changed in this direction, because it's much nicer to do all this work when you have people behind you that push you and tell you occasionally that it's good what you're doing.
Yeah, well, we're very thankful that you do. Your wine is one of my favorites. I post it on Instagram all the time because it's really versatile. The old Wein Gemischter Satz you can drink with any kind of food, I find. And I want to thank you just so much. What a beautiful view. It's really nice to see your face and have a chat like this. I feel like I had a visit to Vienna, and I look forward to drinking more of your wine. Thank you so much,
Jeff.
Fritz.
It was great.
Be
also
well.
For me.
Thanks, Sophie, for me, and we'll talk soon, I hope.
All right, and stay healthy.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody for watching.
All right, bye-bye.